my phone's ringing, and my secretary goes, "Superintendent's on the phone for you." I said, "Oh, okay." Put him through. "Hey, what's Gidio doing out? What's Gidio doing out and walking the dog?" I said, "Gidio walking the dog?" I said, "What are you talking about?" Sure enough.
So, here we are.
Hello.
Hello. So we were just going through old pictures. So you were our principal. You were my principal when I graduated in 1985.
I was.
You were. Did I show you this picture?
The prom.
I'm the one on the left.
I know who you are.
So, you're from Long Branch.
Yes, born and raised.
Born and raised. And then you started teaching, correct? At Long Branch? Did you teach at Long Branch?
Yeah, my first job was at Long Branch. Yes, my
Long
first
Branch
job
High
was
School.
at Long Branch High School. Yes,
And what did
teaching
you teach?
science.
You did teach science.
I was a biology, chemistry teacher.
How many
at
years
Long
did
Branch.
you teach?
I was only there 2 years, and then I went to Shore Regional. I was recruited to coach football at Shore Regional, so I went to Shore Regional for 4 years.
Okay.
And then I was recruited to coach football back at Long Branch, so I returned to Long Branch because my college coach actually got the job at Long Branch, and he recruited me to go back to Long Branch.
Who was that?
Teaching coach, Frank Glazier.
Okay, I've heard of him.
So he brought me back to Long Branch in 1977, and I stayed.
So how soon after did you become assistant principal?
1981. I was the AD in 79. 79, 80, I was assistant AD to Merrick Tamain, and then in 80 I became the assistant principal.
Okay, so that was my freshman year. Right, so that would make sense. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
It's all coming together now. And then how soon after did you become head principal?
1994.
And was
I
there
became head principal.
a tremendous difference in pressure between assistant to head principal?
You know, the toughest job in a school is not the principal, it's the assistant principal. Because, you're dealing with discipline.
Okay,
And, you always, well, you guys know, it's the toughest thing to do is discipline.
right.
And, you know, that in and of itself, your day could be, there was never a day that was the same. Every day's a challenge because you have no idea what you're going to walk into.
Right.
And you had to be on the alert all the time. And that was, the pressure was greater there. I mean, now, not to say that being the principal, there wasn't a lot of pressure there, but
Sure.
it wasn't as constant, it wasn't as, you know, there were days I'd go in as assistant principal and my secretary would say, okay, you got, here's the discipline referrals from the day before. And I always tried to, I thought it was only fair to my teachers that if they hit me with a discipline referral, I'd look through all of them. And it was kind of like being in the, you know, triage in a hospital, which are the ones that are most, you know, volatile, and those were the ones I took care of first. So I would say right away, I'd give them to my secretary, get this kid down, get this kid down, get this kid down, get this kid down. And I'd take care of them before, in some cases, they couldn't go back to the class. So I'd want to see them before there was any chance of them getting back in that class, because it wasn't fair to a teacher who put a kid out or had a situation with a kid that was serious, that kid walks in like, hey, I'm back, here I am, you know, and it's just not, you know, it's not good. It's not a good look for the teacher. It's not a good look for the students. So I tried to do that right away. So that sometimes could take up 5 hours in the morning. And I mean, because it was one after another after another. And then you'd get to the lesser ones, the cutting and the things like that. They'd come later. But you had to prioritize your day. But it could be, and then the cafeteria, which to me is, and in and of above itself, is the most crucial place to have administrators, because that's where you have the greatest concentration of students at one time, and you have students, depending on how your building is broken down, you could have seniors and freshmen in the same lunch period, or you have the bloods and the gaboons in the same cafeteria, or you know, two different groups that are at odds. And now you'd have to position yourself now, okay, they're over there and they're over there, so I better be over here. It was just, and it was constant. You know, you're walking around, you're always on the alert, you're looking. I used to tell my you know, moving target's hard to hit. That's why I'd be in the cafeteria and I'd constantly be moving around, looking, watching, listening, you know, conversations, watching body language and stuff. So, you're on alert all the time as an assistant principal. Now, I'd go down as a principal because I just like being down there. For me, it was a little different. I was there, yes, for discipline, but also to get to know my kids. You know, I'd stop at a table, I'd see the band, kids in the band. I go, boy, you guys were great at the concert last night. Oh, when's the concert come? I try to always have a relationship with the kids. Try to get to know their names. Couldn't know them all. There were 1,500 kids. But you try to strike a relationship with them. And sometimes it means a lot to a kid. You know, hey, the principal came by my table today. Wow, he asked me about my school or my game or something. So I tried to have, so it was a little different. It was a little more relaxed. Whereas as assistant principal, I was, you know, and the kids looked at you as, yeah, there's the man, you know.
And when you were head principal, you had Hoyle Mosey. So you had somebody who I think he did a great job of rounding up the kids that first period, right, to bring them to in-school.
And Mosey would bring them to in-school. And we tried to use in-school as, you know, it was punitive in a way, but we didn't want it to be punitive so that the kids lose their education. Or don't. So we made our in-school, it was, you know, we made sure, Mosey made sure they all got their work, made sure the work got done, make sure the work got back to the teachers. And Mosey and I would meet every day at the end of the day, okay, who did, who didn't, who do I have to call in tomorrow? And I would call them in from in school. I wouldn't leave that to my assistant principals. That'd be my job. Because I wanted those kids to know, you're in there, your next step is out the door.
Right.
So now you didn't do your work, you got to meet with me. We're going to straighten this out now. You're going to do your work tomorrow, or you're going to do your work today? No? Go home, tell your parents to give me a call. Well, I'd call the parents. I mean, I'd say that, but I would have to call them before I could put a kid out. But, you know, it's just the way it was. Had to make it serious.
So do you ever have school dreams still?
Oh, of course. You don't spend 37 years doing something, not every now and then. You know, sometimes and it's an unfortunate circumstance of being an old man is that, you know, like we just lost three teachers this past year, 3 guys I worked with for 25 years passed away. And so, you know, they're in my mind. They're in, you know, the thoughts. And
so it's interesting you say that because I had a dream about Vinnie Borelli recently.
Oh, man, Borelli.
So I keep dreaming about being in the high school. And I'm walking around, and I was walking by the auditorium, and then I see Vinnie. He was dressed in the 70s. He was much younger, and he gave me a big hug. So that was, and he also came in my dream right after he passed. And was like, it was very much like I'm good.
I'm okay.
Yep.
I'll tell you about Vinnie. It's a story, you know, and this is, I used to have some clashes with, when we were doing budgets.
Let me just say, for those who don't know, so Vinnie was in charge of the drama program.
Vinnie was he was the head teacher of the theater, drama, and music programs.
Right.
And he was also he did all our plays and all our, any musical things. When I first became principal, my very first budget, I get a list from the central office, and they wanted to cut the arts. You know, we need money for, back then it was they were taking the HESPA. I don't know, you guys were all too young for that, or maybe you're not, the high school.
GEPA.
Okay, proficiency assessment. So the HESPA, they wanted to put all this money into HESPA. And they said, well, we'll cut this, we'll cut this, we'll cut this. And I had learned from Vinnie Borelli that the arts are extremely important. They're no less important, and you know, there's some people right now who are probably going to curse me out, no less important than the football, basketball, athletic program, because there are a lot of kids who come to school because of the arts. There are a lot of kids who come to school to be in the play, to be in the band, and they're no less important than the kids who dribble the ball or shoot the baskets and all that stuff. The priority has to be, if you're going to put money into them, then you got to put money into them. If you're going to cut both programs, then you cut both, but you don't cut one and save the other, and it's just not right. It's because there's a population that really is served by that. So Vinnie taught me that early, and he would be on me all the time. James, he called me James. James, don't let them cut my budget. James, don't let them cut my budget. And I never would. I fought always for the arts. And I remember the first budget I went up, and I'm sitting there, and the assistant superintendent goes, well, you didn't cut anything out of the arts. And I said, not cutting anything out of the arts. Well, you got to cut the money. I said, I'll find it elsewhere. I said, but I'm not cutting the arts. I said, are you cutting the budget for this? Are you cutting? He said, well, no. So I said, I'm not cutting the arts. I said, you cut that, I'll cut the arts. So we battled, and we ended up compromising. But that was always a priority, and I felt there's certain things you fought for and certain things you didn't. That was one thing, and Vinnie Borelli taught me that, because, and he would say, look, James, look at the kids. And eventually Vinnie transcended the arts and the athletics, and his plays became a a conglomerate of all the kids in the school. You'd find, I remember the Georges, Billy George would be on stage, and one year he got our best wide receiver out there, was dancing, just running around dancing. He didn't know what he was doing, but he was on the stage, and the kids had a ball, and it was why the school was so close. You know, people say, "Oh,
Right.
It's because these kids learned to appreciate one another for who they were and what they were. You know, they wasn't, oh, they're the band kids, or oh, they're both, you know, and it brought the school together, and it was a great thing. It was a nice thing.
It was great.
Yeah, it was a good place.
What do you miss most?
What I miss most, I miss getting up every day and going in for the challenge, you know, every day. But I miss my kids and my staff. I mean, you know, I don't miss budgets. I don't miss Board of Education meetings. I don't miss discipline. But you know, in some ways, it had to be done. Some of those kids.
But you connected really well through the kids you were working with on discipline.
You know, it's funny you say that, because I was in, I can't remember how many times I've been in the ShopRite or wherever, and a kid will come up to me and say, "Hey, Mr. Sim, how you doing? You remember me?" And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. He says, "You suspended me, you remember?" And I go, "Oh." He says, "It's the best thing you ever did." He said, "Straighten my ass up." Excuse me.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
But that's what he said.
Right. No, I thought one of your strengths, and I feel very fortunate because I've had this with all 3 principals I've worked with.
Please pardon the interruption.
Take 2. I think one of your strengths is the fact that you were a coach. And so did you find, I saw it from the outside, I don't know if you had that perspective of how being a coach helped you to be a better leader and working with kids and with the tough kids, like that was one of your strengths.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's funny because I always, and I say the same thing with my discipline kids, is that, you know, I'm not angry in most cases. There were a couple of times I was angry with the kid because, you know, some of the things that they did. But I'm angry with what you did. I'm not angry with you. You as a person, you know, you have value. But what you did was wrong. What you did was stupid. What you did was insensitive. What you did was, think about what you did, and think about if somebody did that to you. And I tried to always do that. With my football players, I always said to them, I said, you will never hear me shout or use profanity unless one of 2 things happens. You're not paying attention, or you're not giving effort. You make a mistake, you miss a tackle, you drop a ball, that's physical, you know, those things happen. They happen to you. You can watch the Super Bowl, and it happens to those guys. So if it happens to you, it happens. So that's just the nature of the game. But if you're not paying attention, you're not focusing, okay, and you know, there's no effort, you can have a problem with me. Because if you have no effort, what are you here for? Why are you here? I say that to the kids in school too. What are you here for? Why do you get up in the morning? And Tom Crotty was one who gave me that one. He would always say to the kids, what was your purpose for getting up this morning? Why did you get up? And I'd ask that to kids sometimes, and sometimes they couldn't answer.
Sure.
You better have a purpose. You better find a purpose.
Right.
So I felt that was part of our mission too.
Yeah.
To get them to understand why they're here.
I also thought one of your strengths was that you always had an open door policy, and we could always just come to you anytime. Right. And we did.
You know, it's funny because I had a totally different philosophy than some. Are we ready for that? Is that the time for that, the philosophy thing, or is that coming up?
We're coming up.
Okay, I'll wait. Yes, I had an open door policy.
So you work with administrators, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Now, you mentor them, you help
Right
them.
now I work mostly with teachers now, but I do work with some administrators. But mostly now I'm student teachers. I go, I have 7 student teachers right now all over Monmouth County. So I go and I work with my kids.
So, like, what's some of the advice that you give them?
Well, first of all, the one thing with my student teachers is I want them to learn from their mentors. They're there with these master teachers for a reason, and the reason is that these people have been doing it for years. They've developed into excellent teachers. So you want to model the model, which is the way I tried to be an administrator. You know, I think it's ridiculous to be a leader and expect people to do things you're not willing to do. So my thing when I used to teach a graduate school at Monmouth, one of the things I'd say, and I had Mr. Amato actually, I'd say you got to model the model. You know, if you're going to talk the talk, then you better walk the walk, because if not, you're a phony, and whoever you're trying to lead is going to see that right away. Right. So I tell my student teachers that you observe these master teachers, borrow from them, but you got to be yourself. You can't be that teacher. You cannot be that person because you're different personalities. But you can learn from them. You can take techniques, pedagogy, the different things that they do. Watch how they relate to kids, how they talk to kids, how they interact. Lesson planning, how they plan lessons that are student-centered, and how they adapt for differentiation. Those are the things you're here to learn, and I'm here to help you learn those things.
Right.
I work with them. I don't work with, for example, I do a lot of math and science. I'm not going to go in and tell a kid how to teach the quadratic formula. Your cooperating teacher is going to teach you how to do that, okay? Because she's doing it or he's doing it, and they're doing it well, and they'll do it better than I can. So you're going to learn from them, okay? But I will teach you how to implement it into a lesson plan. I will teach you how to sequence lesson plans. I will work with you on planning units based on the curriculum that you've worked with the cooperating teachers. So we try to work together. I really work with my cooperating teachers a lot on, we combine our strengths to develop these kids.
Right. So how important is just having a strong team? I always like to see how you and Donald Coven work together, but you didn't always get to pick your team, correct? Or
no, unfortunately.
Right.
No, well, the thing with Donald, and this is, this doesn't always happen.
Was the assistant principal when you were head principal.
The thing with Donald is that when Donald was 13 years old, it was my first year coaching at Long Branch. 14 years old, I guess he was a freshman. There was a synergy between Donald and I, and we just hit it off from the beginning. And I, as his coach, I was a young kid. I was 21 years old. He was 14, and we just hit it off right away. And he was very talented, but he was a little, off there. He's a little wayward to begin with. I took him under my wing, and we got very close, and that relationship stayed throughout our lives. I love Donald. Okay, he's like a brother to me. A little brother, a younger brother. He's not little, but so we already had a relationship when I saw he was looking for a job. Again, that was one of the ones I made a quick phone call. Got to hire him. I need him. And when I took the principal's job, I went into the superintendent. I said, I want to bring him up. Well, he doesn't have an administrative degree. I said he'll go back and get it. I said, I want to put him in school suspension. I want him in charge of in-school. I want him to work with my troubled kids because he knows how to relate to the kids. So we moved him up. We moved him into the in-school room. And I brought Donald in. I said, Donald, I got an opportunity for you. I said, you can take it or leave it. I said, you tell me what you want to do. I said, you want to get in administration? I said, I have an avenue for you to get there. You got to go back to school, though. I said, you're going to have to make the investment financially and with your time. I said, but if you do it, I said, you're going to be an assistant principal here. And to Donald's credit, he never backs off from anything. He went back to school. He got his degree in 2 years and became an assistant principal, then became a principal. Now he's a president of the Board of Education. He's on the Housing Authority. He's a success story that's way beyond what I expected or what I'd hoped for, but makes me proud.
Yep. And I remember you had a quote in your office that I use to this day, every chance I get, pretty much. For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack, by Rudyard Kipling. Yep.
Yeah.
I take a lot of your quotes with me in my life. I think we're going to save this one till the end. It's what you ended every faculty meeting with.
Yeah. I wish for you.
But the one before that is. When you would observe me, you would give me a nice observation. You'd say, you're doing great. But then you would say, don't rest on your laurels.
Yeah, well, it's what I believe, and I believe for any teacher, anybody, you always want to be a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. You want to, your whole life, you want to continue to be a learner. You want to continue to, I don't claim to, people say, well, how do you know all the, I'm a football coach, so how do you know all these defenses? And I say, well, I learned them. What do you mean you learned them? I said, well, I borrowed from this guy, from that guy. I went out and I wanted to learn how to do this defense, so I went out and talked to this coach. I went to this coach. I said, I did the same thing as a principal. I said, I learned more from my staff than I ever learned from it, than I ever knew. I mean, I talked to teachers and they'd make suggestions, recommendations. Hey, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And that's my friend when I brought my friend in. But you got to be a lifelong learner. And even if it's not in your profession, I want to learn how to cook bolognese sauce or something.
Sure.
It's being a learner. Learn how to do those things. I've been a lifeguard for 58. How old am I? 58 years or something, and I still learn techniques, you know, life-saving techniques. Every year we have a symposium. I go to the symposium to learn. Something new may come out that's better than the way I do it. If you can do it better than I'm doing it, I want to do it your way.
Right.
You
And
know, I don't, you know, I don't have all the answers, and sometimes your answers are better than mine, so I'm going to borrow you.
So between that quote and Bob Frost, I think those are two big influences on me as a teacher today, because
Wasn't Frost a great teacher?
so he was my 8th grade social studies teacher, and then he was my colleague, of course, you know, when I was working there. And he was at the end of his career, and I would walk by his classroom, and he's 35 years in, and going strong. And I always said, because that was at the beginning of my career, I said, I'm going to end my career strong. I'm not going to, you know.
Yeah, fall off the cliff.
Right. I'm going to just keep going. You know, I want to end my career
You
like Bob Frost.
You bring up Frosty, and I'll tell you a little story. It's just, this could be any great teacher. When I would observe Frosty, I remember one year I went in, and he had the door, the window to the door was covered. So I walked out, opened the door, and you know, I usually would tell you when I'm coming in to observe you for most cases, unless you were a slacker, then you might get a surprise visit from me. But if you're a good teacher, I'd give you the opportunity to. Right. And I like that, because sometimes the teachers would show off and I'd get to see great lessons. So I walked in on Frosty this one time, and I walk in the room, and I look, and all over the room are posters and pictures, and there's music playing, and it's what was the big band music is playing, and there's posters up, and they're all from the 1930s, and pictures of Babe Ruth and all these Jesse Owens track and field. And you go in the room, you look around, and there was a Victrola, an old-fashioned Victrola playing. Well, actually, what I did was I came from my world into the 1930s. Yeah. He made the room the 1930s, because that's the era he was teaching in history. So when those kids walked in the room, they got a flavor of the 1930s. It wasn't him talking and them trying to visualize or showing a video. They were in the 1930s. Yeah. Everything about that experience was the 1930s. And it was amazing. And I said, these kids are getting an incredible education today. And that was Frosty. That was every day Frosty. That was the way Frosty taught. He was a master teacher. And Angela Borelli was the same. You walked into her room, you walked in Italy. You walked in Italy. You were in Italy for that room, whether it was she had a pasta dish, or she was playing music, or she had a custom or a costume or something. It was, those two were two amazing teachers. And I learned so much from them about how, if you make it relevant,
right.
You know, they're going to get the hook if you can make it relevant.
So, shifting to the union, your experience working with the union over the years.
I was fortunate. I got to be honest with you. I wasn't a big union guy when I was a teacher, because I felt if I wasn't doing the job, whether I was good or bad, you fire me. You know, if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, not that I wanted to be. Let me tell you, I didn't go around saying I don't care. I cared very much, right. But I guess it was my second year. I didn't have much controversy my first year. My second year, the opening faculty meeting, something had come down from the on high that we had to do an initiative, and I don't remember if it was a writing initiative. Every class had to do a writing thing or something. I think it was writing, even math. They wanted the math people to write. They wanted the science people to write, everybody to write. And so they gave it to me, and they said, you figure out how to do it. So I came up with a way, and I introduced it at a faculty meeting. And it was the opening faculty meeting. And the meeting ended, and I went back, and everybody's going about their business. The next morning, a member who I was close with in the faculty came to my office and said, hey, can I talk to you? I said, sure, what's up? He said, that initiative didn't go over real well. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, so-and-so, who happened to be the union president, is in the faculty room, and he's killing you. I said, is he? He said, why? He said, well, what you described, or the way you want us to implement this, it's stupid, it's useless, it's this, it's that. So I said, really? He said, yeah, and he's getting a lot of people who see his side of it. I said, oh, okay, thanks very much. So I said, I better talk to my boy. So I sent him a note. I said, can I talk to you at the end of the day? And he came in, and he sat across me. I said, so what's the problem? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, I heard you had some things to say about the initiative in the faculty room. So he kind of paused for me and he said, yeah. I said, well, what's the problem? So he launched into a diatribe, just tearing the initiative apart. You know, this is stupid. We don't want to do this. Why are we doing this? What are you doing that? What are you doing this? What are you doing that? So I listened. I nodded my head. I said, you know, you have a point. I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in charge of the initiative. You figure out how we're going to do it, and you'll present at the next faculty meeting. Well, he went. He said, what? I said, yeah, you're in charge. You got it. So he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I was told to do it. I said, they didn't tell me how to do it. They just said, we have to get this done. I said, you think my way doesn't work, so you must have a better way. I said, or are you just, excuse my language, can I say it? Are you just, well, I got a better word. Are you just complaining for the sake of complaining? I said, what's your purpose here? Is to show people that you're educated or to come up with a real solution? I said, because I want this is going to have to work. We're going to be evaluated. All of us are going to be evaluated on whether this initiative goes through and works or not. So he said, well, no, I want what's best for the staff. I said, great. I said, because as a union president, you better want what's best for your staff. I said, so you're going to go ahead and implement it. From that day on, he and I worked together like it was just, I respected him, he respected me, and we worked together. Now, did we always agree? No. No, there were times he came in, but he would come in even when, I'll tell you, when, you know, we had to let go of a few teachers every now and then. I didn't like doing it. It's the hardest thing I ever had to do. Hardest thing you ever have to do. Two hardest things. Telling a kid he's not graduating and looking across the table at a teacher and telling him you're taking away their livelihood or you're postponing it or anyway, you're going to, it's so hard to do. I mean, I lost a lot of nights' sleep, or a few nights' sleep. It wasn't that many we got rid of. But I would always talk to the union president before. I'd say, listen, so-and-so's not cutting the mustard. Can you work with her? Can you work with him? And we would try to remediate the problem before we had to recommend termination. And he would come back and say, it's not working, it's not there. Or he'd say, yeah, she's doing better. I think you should keep her. And sometimes I agreed, and a couple of times I didn't. And then we didn't battle, but we agreed to disagree. And he had to do his job, and I had to do mine. If I had to recommend somebody to be terminated, he was there. If he thought they needed support, he was there strong. If he didn't, and this is to his credit, not a lot of union people do this, he would take the person aside and say, listen, I think our best bet right now is to resign. He'll write you a letter of recommendation, and we go somewhere else with your career. And I did that a few times. You know, I didn't want to crucify anybody. You know, there's some people that, you know, I said, hey, you know, this is just not the place for you. Maybe you'd be better at another school district. Or so, and I'd write letters of recommendation for some of those people. And you don't want to kill people. Some of them it wasn't a good place for them. It wasn't a good start for them. It wasn't a good atmosphere for them. Maybe we gave them the wrong subject. Maybe, and that's my fault, or my head teacher and I's fault.
I mean, listen, teaching at Long Branch was tough. I mean, it wasn't for the weak of heart.
I was part of the urban initiative, and in the 1990s, in the middle 1990s, almost 2000, I guess, and there was a lot going on with, you know, trying to equalize education, and so there was a panel that was put together by the state of New Jersey, and they had a principal from North Jersey, a principal from South Jersey, a principal from Trenton, and myself, and we were on this panel with the governor and all his state board of education people, and they were having a discussion, something similar to this, and they were asking, you know, what is your job as a school principal? What is your job? What do you think your number one priority is? And one gentleman said to make sure that my teachers teach and my students learn. The woman from Trenton said to make sure that my educational system is fiscally responsible and sound. And they said to me, they said, what do you think? I said, well, I don't mean to disagree with my colleagues. I said, but my number one job is to make sure my schools are safe for my students and my teachers. Because if I don't have a safe school, my teachers can't teach and my students won't learn. I said, because they'll be worried about things that they shouldn't be worried about. And I said, that's my number one job. And the one member of the state looked at me and said, well, you don't have a safe school? I said, no, I do have a safe school. I said, because it's my priority. I said, you know, and from there, I said, if my school's safe and my teachers are comfortable and my students feel good coming every day, learning's going to happen. I said, then my teachers can teach and my students can learn. Then I can worry about budgeting things for different programs and stuff. But if I don't have a safe school, I don't have a school. I worked for someone who believed that the only thing that motivated teachers was fear. And this person led that way for years. And I actually heard him tell a group of educators that that's the only thing that motivates. And I don't believe that. I believe that you motivate people through respect. You motivate people through buy-in, making them feel that they're part of what you're trying to accomplish. If they're part of the goal, then they're going to work harder to make that goal happen. Now, does fear motivate? Yeah, it does, to a point, to a way, but you're not going to go above and beyond. If you can go, if I know I just have to go this far, that's as far as I'm going.
Right.
But if I know that my going this far is going to make us more successful, I'm going to go that far. And then eventually, you know, as I'm buying into it, it's a little bit of a extrinsic thing because it's what comes here. It's not financial or anything,
Sure.
but it's how you feel as a teacher. I mean, we don't get paid enough. I mean, even as administrator, I got paid a lot compared to a teacher, but I work 12 and 14-hour days
Right.
almost every day. In the summer, I mean, I put in a lot of time. So, you know, eventually if you break it down, we don't get paid a lot. But
Right.
a lot of times what we get paid and what makes our job special, what I used to tell some of my young kids when I would hire them, is you're not always going to make a lot of money, and that stinks. That's the worst thing in the world, this society where we can pay $1 million for somebody to act for 30 minutes or play a ball player, but teachers get peanuts. But that's another point for another time. But someday a kid's going to come up to you and say, you made a difference in my life. That's going to mean a lot, and it does.
Yeah.
It really does. I can tell you from experience, it means the world.
So, as a counterpoint, I remember once I was coming in on a Saturday morning to get something in my classroom, and you stopped me and you said, Gidio, don't make this your life. So I thought that was interesting. Like, you know, family's important, right? There's things that, you know, just, yeah, because you saw me kind of just...
You have to have
Yeah.
balance.
Right.
It has to be balance. I mean, and that's not saying, you know, great teachers, you know, I don't think anybody who's over immersed in anything is totally happy, because eventually that's going to become a drag. Eventually that's going to become something that you're going to say, oh man, you want to come in every day excited. You want to come in every day feeling enthused about what you're doing, but you need to recharge your batteries
Yeah.
every now and then. You need to get out and do other things.
So, also, you know, there's a part of your job that they don't teach in school, which is true of a lot of jobs, but, you know, I was a substitute for many years, so I had a lot of different perspectives of, you know, all corners of the school. And I remember one week in particular, I wasn't needed. I guess I must have been a permanent sub, and I wasn't needed in the classroom. And so they put me in the main office for that week. And it was a memorable week. And I remember, I mean, you may have aged 10 years in that week. So I'm going to bring up some difficult memories. But, you know, as I said earlier, you had an open door policy. And I mean, the people they would bring these things from outside, you know, to you.
Oh yeah, the community came into the school every day.
Right.
So if something happened the night before, God forbid, somebody was shot, or somebody was molested, or somebody was robbed, or something, it came into the school. I mean, always.
So we're going back to 1997. November 17th, 1997, a young girl had a suicide pact.
Mm-hmm.
One girl was successful, and the other was not.
Yeah.
And you had to meet with the parent of the young woman who decided not to go through with it.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the school is, of course,
Yeah, school was in chaos.
chaos. Do you know what happened 3 days later?
What?
Sergeant Pat King
Was murdered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
execution style, which it was...
Chinese restaurant on Second
Yeah.
Avenue.
That was 3 days apart. And
Yeah, tough
both
week.
devastated. And a lot of it fell on you. Like,
Tough week.
Yeah,
Yeah, I coach Pat.
yeah. And that's part of the job, too.
Yeah, well, you know, you're not immune to
Yeah.
to emotions and to you know, your own feelings. I mean, and that's, you know, that's the thing sometimes, even with my teachers, you know, and if you don't have empathy, you shouldn't be in education.
Right.
You should go, you know, do something else.
Right.
You know, go sell stocks or something. But, you know, You got to be empathetic. You have to be able to feel for people. And that doesn't mean you make allowances sometimes for inappropriate behavior or not doing, but you have to feel, you have to understand, you know. And that was a particularly tough week. And, you know, as tough as that was, you know, talking to those parents, and, you know, I also had to go over to the house to the little girl who did finish the pact. And I had to spend time with those parents. And, you know, the funeral was exceptionally difficult.
Yeah.
You know, tough.
It's an issue that we
It's not something they
today.
prepare you for
Right.
in graduate school or the principal's exam or anything like that. And those are
Right.
where, you know, if you don't have, you know, just having a degree in the paper doesn't make you a great administrator.
Right.
It doesn't even make you qualified.
So what advice would you give to someone going into administration?
Oh, boy. I don't know if there's any advice I could give them that would help them. I mean, I think if you're going to go in thinking you're going to make a lot of money, or you're going to make more money, or you're going to be a boss or something like that, you know, you got to go in with your eyes open and understand that. I can only tell you how I feel. I mean, I don't know how other people go in. I never I didn't want to be the principal. I don't know if you know that, if you knew the story about that.
It's ringing a bell, but go ahead, tell
I
me.
love being an assistant principal. I love working with the kids. You know, I didn't think I was very good at being a politician, so to speak.
Right.
And because I think a certain part of the principal's job, you have to be a little bit political. You have to,
Okay.
and I'm not political. I'm very apolitical, or unpolitical. I don't know which word. You're the English major. What's the right word? I'm not that at all. So I love being an assistant principal. So when I got called over to the office when Tom was sick, and they were going to move Tom from the high school to, not sick, I guess he wasn't sick yet. They were going to move him, because he was doing some crazy things. They moved him from the high school to the
Middle
board
school?
office.
Oh, right.
They called me in and said, how would you like to be the principal? I said, nope. They said, what do you mean? I said, I don't want to be the principal. I said, I really don't, I don't think I'm qualified. Well, we think you're qualified. We think you get along with the kids. And I said, well, I said, but it's different. I said, up there, it's different. It's a different job. It's a whole different dynamic. Well, we think you'd be good at it, and we want to give you a shot. I said, well, on one condition. And the one condition was that I bring Donald up with me. So they said, why? I said, because he can relate to the people I can't relate to, and he can teach me how to relate to the people that I can't relate to. I said, I need him. I need him with me. They looked at each other, and they said, well, we'll let you know. I said, okay. There was I didn't care one way or the other. And he called me up later that afternoon and said, we decided we're going to go with you. I said, okay. I said, can I tell Donald? He said, yeah, you can tell Donald. So that's how that started. But I didn't want to be the principal. It wasn't something I looked forward to. So advice I'd give, you want to go in, and this is my way of going in. I want to go in, and I want to make it, whatever the task is in the school, I want to make the school a great place for my teachers and for my students. I don't care about the board. I don't care about it, anything else. I want them to come in and want to work every day to make it the best place possible. And I'm going to work as hard or harder than you are to make it happen. Now, you have to be flexible. You have to be empathetic. And sometimes you have to be tough. Sometimes you have to take the hard line. Sometimes you have to be able to look somebody in the eye and say, nope, not happening. And they may ask you why, and you better have a reason. Okay, it's not just because I say so. So you have to be knowledgeable in what you're doing. You have to understand the school and the workings of it, the people that are in there, and you have to be able to adjust and bob and weave when you have to. But you got to be empathetic.
We're winding down.
Am I using all my time?
So what do you want your legacy to be? What is your legacy? So I gave you a book when you retired.
I still have that book.
Do you know the name of the book?
Yeah, about the trees, planting the trees.
Yeah, The Man Who Planted
Man
Trees.
Who Planted Trees. I've got that book. I look at it every now and then. I do.
That was you.
I actually do that. It's in my office, my little...
I would be considered one of your trees.
One of my trees.
You have one over there. Amanda Pollard. She worked with you and her as a cooperating teacher at Monmouth.
She's here. I didn't know you were here.
Hi.
It's great.
I mean, there's got to be hundreds out there. You know,
It's quite
you have
few.
a lot of trees out
There's
there.
a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my student teachers, I've been doing that since 2004, so that's 20 years now. So there's, maybe 150 of them. A couple of administrators, 5 or 6 high school administrators, because I don't do that anymore. They took me out of the classroom, put me with you guys. But legacy, I don't know about legacy. Just try to treat people fairly and nice, the way I want to be treated. Treat others as you want to be treated. And just, I never believe that. It's a people business, and if you lose sight of that, then you really shouldn't be doing it anymore. You're dealing with people. You're dealing with, and to feel that I worked with some people who felt they were more important than you were, and they let you know it. And I tried never to do that. Even when with my kids, I try to talk to them. Try to be personal with them and let them know I care. And they know if you're a phony or not. Kids can read you. Mm-hmm. And teachers can read you. Teachers know who's full of crap.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. So I tried to be, straight up and honest. My legacy is I tried to treat others as I want to be treated, and hope that I in some way, shape, or form, I made their life better for knowing me. That's it.
Right.
And I didn't do that. You're asking me what? I never thought that way. I mean, I didn't say, well, I'm going to go in there and hope that I make their lives better. That's not what I.
Right. Your famous Sim quote that you would end every faculty meeting with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd close the meeting. I'd always open the meeting with something, with music, something upbeat and something, I remember once it was at 10,000 Maniacs. I played These Are the Days, and another one was Welcome Back, Cotter, and another one, I remember it, all different themes. But I would always end the same way, and I'd say, here's our plan for the year, and I'd say, I'd wish for you what you wish for me. And that's how I ended my meetings.
And you could take that however.
Take that however you want. But it's